Also, I almost had a mental breakdown. I'm not even joking.
What happened?
Do you remember? So, you know how I can get quite obsessive about things, as you might know, and that often manifests itself in my work. I really get into it, but every so often it manifests itself in negative ways, which is what we talked about with the soft white underbelly. It can sort of veer off and not that far, but it can get a bit destructive. And last time we tried doing the video, I don't know if you remember, this had like a big road like logo on it. It had these like covers, and it really bothered me, and more than it should. Like for normal people, I think, oh cool, it's just like this kind of neoprene cover with the road logo in white letters, but it just aesthetically, it just felt corrupt to me, and it's quite hard to describe, but it just really annoyed me, and I had to just get rid of it, so I cut it off with a knife. But at first I tried to just blot out the letters, and then I tried to remove them, and then eventually I just cut the whole fucking thing off. But aesthetically, like, the world wasn't in balance until I committed that act. And that's luckily amazing. It's actually functional. Like, it's pretty much the same microphone. It's like the original version of this microphone stand, but it just had that cover on it, which was like the new version. But yeah, so that I'm glad we sorted that out in our previous experiment with video.
It's so lucky that you can't see this side of the boom stand, because it says Frame Pro or something. It's like it's the most ugliest sticker in the world. Like the Rode one was barely, like, it was okay, right? Well, I mean, but this one is ugly. I mean,
Rode is a cool brand, I guess, but like I think they pushed it too far by having, like, on 4 locations on the mic boom stand, having it just in these white letters. And a lot of people online were like, no, this isn't acceptable. And my microphone has the logo as well, but it's a little bit more subtle. But that led me into a bigger topic about just aesthetic corruption and how just normal people, most people don't care about things. But there's a lot of things that are just they're not very nice to look at, and one of those things is talking with masked people.
Oh yeah.
And it's corrupt at its core, because it's unable to be able to see people's emotion. It's like, as an artist, it's a form of it's abusive, and I'm not even joking. Like, it's just seeing little beady eyes popping out over a mask. It's like that. It actually gives me anxiety. I don't know about you, but it really bothers me, and I've had to deal with it. And it's like, oh yeah, it's everyone's choice. But at the end of the day, we're part of a society, and that society is based on interpersonal relationships and connections between people. And in society at large, you can't make those connections without just using body language, and facial expression is like 90% of body language. So you suddenly cut that off, and it's like we're now no longer communicating.
You mentioned this before, didn't you? There was a study recently about babies being quite affected by the pandemic, and how how they're not able to recognize faces anymore, and how that's going to affect their sort of upbringing, and how they sort of associate with people. It's now being proven. There's a lot of studies out there, and the pandemic really did have a big shift on our mental health, but also on the mental health of babies, and it's quite scary, really, if you think about it, man. I
saw a photo. I'm pretty sure it's real, of a Air New Zealand, like just a domestic flight, and there was a picture of a small, like an infant, with one of the blue surgical masks over its entire face.
Oh, jeez.
With some holes cut out for its eyes. Not even a joke. Like, it was just, and I could tell it was a New Zealand flight, because it had the in-flight magazine and stuff in the frame of the photo. And I thought, you know what? This is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you're going to risk suffocating your child with this ill-fitting mask that, at the end of the day, doesn't do anything. It's designed to stop kind of saliva and that sort of thing. In certain contexts, it's designed for that, but it's not designed to stop, microscopic particles coming through. That's just not what it does. But we're still doing that, and I harp on about this, but it's just like we're in this really interesting space where it's like it's no longer a health, or it never was really, but it's become a political thing. Our governing party can't let it go because it will mean that that's the only thing they got left, and so they're just kind of holding on to it, like a life raft, I guess. And because once they let that go, then they're done for. The New Zealand public won't have anything else that they're doing. So it's interesting, man. I don't know what to do.
I mean, I guess that's what's happening in our country, right? Like, we were pretty much all in on the COVID thing and protecting ourselves, protecting our NHS and protecting our neighbours, and we were really strictly sticking to wearing masks and sort of like protecting ourselves in that way. But then as soon as it started to be leaked that there were all these parties in Westminster and Downing Street during the lockdowns, all the MPs having parties and our Prime Minister having wine and cheese and, but blatantly breaking the rules that he was requesting every single day that we followed ourselves. Ever since it was revealed that was all going on, suddenly COVID just disappeared. It was no longer being talked about because they couldn't talk about it anymore if they had been caught themselves breaking the rules, right? And also, like, it was a time when the whole of the country sort of turned their eyes onto the Prime Minister and the MPs and the government, and so like they had to win favour with the population. And how can they win favour with the population? Oh, you don't have to wear masks anymore. Hey, everybody cheers. Great, that's amazing. We can go to work without wearing masks. We can, we don't have to take these tests anymore. We don't have to get vaccine passports, blah, blah, blah. It was literally like they stopped all of that as a way to gain popularity with everybody, right? It was crazy. Yeah. Absolutely fucked.
I actually think, oh man, there's so many layers to this. I was having a good think about it, but in a way, I think what's happened in the UK, for better or for worse, is actually overall a better outcome than what we've had in New Zealand, because the corruption was exposed. And I mean, you just got to take one look at Boris Johnson and think, this guy's he's corrupt. But it's in a way it's old school corruption, which it's got to the point where it's like, actually that's kind of okay. Because what is worse is ideological corruption, which is what has happened in New Zealand, where we have this kind of greater good, kind of forced puppet state thing going on, which it's horrific. The New Zealand that I knew is gone, and it's happened under this current government. But that everything is a lie. Everything's a facade. The media has been brought out. Like literally, there's been these funds, these media journalism funds that come out. It's all, I mean, blah, blah, blah. There's a litany of lies, as they say. And to see it unfold, it's like, I kind of wish there was just a scandal that had just opened the can and then it all fell out and we were able to go back to normal, like financial scandal, whatever it would have been, that would have been fine, but that hasn't quite happened yet. And so people are still drinking from the fountain of Kool-Aid, on a daily basis, and it's like this cognitive dissonance. It's strange, and I could see how you could get swept up in it if that was all you were exposed to. It's like that's all you see within the media bubble and the social bubble of what of your daily life. I could see how that would really just sweep someone up and become normalized.
Yeah, 100%. Scary. Whatever you watch on the news all day is what you're going to believe, right? I mean, because that's what you are sort of told to follow.
But I do feel like we've come through, like looking at it positively, we've come through it. I feel that we have come through maximum pain. Like the difficult ideological times have passed, and now it's the kind of hard reality, and those are two different things. And so we're now encompassing inflation, cost of living. I know it's pretty bad over where you are, right? It's similar to here. It's all-time high, in recent memory, the highest inflation we've had for a long time. And people wonder where it all came from. It's like, it's just magically happened. But enough about that, though. That's sort of the conversation start, and we always seem to come back to this, but it's kind of a perennial, ongoing.
It's evergreen content.
I mean, maybe in a couple of years this will still be, well, hopefully not, but it could still be on the radar. But besides that, how have you been?
Yeah, really good, man. I'm trying to have a bit of a weekend of doing some things that really sort of make me happy. The last few weekends I've been quite still, quite motionless, lying flat, I think the Chinese call it, is it? But, I was like, this week I was like... thinking to myself that, I really want to do, I just want to go out to a cafe and have a nice coffee in the morning, have some sort of like nice brunch, cycle around the city, go visit some new bookshops that I've not been to. I went to a park. I went to, where else did I go? Oh my gosh. My memory is really bad at the moment, but yeah, I just went all over today. I went here, there, and everywhere, and just followed my sort of curiosity, followed my map, I just bought a new bike, right? So I'm getting used to it's a drop handlebar bike, and I've never had drop handlebars before. So it's a whole different riding style, and there are 3 riding styles, right? You can ride really low, or really high, or somewhere in between. And so getting used to that is a bit precarious, because the bike moves in ways that I don't quite expect it to move. So there's a lot of getting used to that. But it's great. I've been zipping around the city, really enjoying it, man. Yeah.
Have you always been a cyclist, or?
I really got into cycling when I moved to South Korea. I bought a fixie, a secondhand fixie, and I bought it because I just wanted to travel around Seoul, and absolutely, like, the fixie was crazy. I didn't realize, I was young and I was stupid, and I had my little hipster moment where I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy a fixie. I didn't really know what a fixie was, and now I know that fixie means that basically your legs are fixed to be moving all the time. So there's no freewheeling on a fixie. Like, you have to pedal all the time, down a hill, up a hill, everywhere. You have to keep your legs constantly moving. So that was that was quite a lot. So anyway, I really got into cycling in South Korea, and I would spend my evenings cycling around my area, and I cycled like a lot. I cycled to school, and my school was like probably about 15 kilometers from my home, so that was a big journey. And then when I moved back to the UK, I bought sort of like a hybrid road bike, and it was like a city/road. So it's one of these hybrids, and I cycled from London to Brighton on it. And every year in the UK, there's this London to Brighton cycle ride, and you can do it during the day, or you can do it at night. And I chose to do the night one. And you start at midnight from Tower Bridge in London. I think we were under Tower Bridge, in the park underneath Tower Bridge, and you cycle through the night. And the great thing about London is that there are bike lanes everywhere. I mean, it's a very lovely city for cycling around. So we were cycling at night. The roads were really smooth because of all these. We have like what is it called? Cycle superhighway or something in London. So it's all like mapped out. It's all blue lanes. It's all green lanes. So it's really easy to get around. Anyway, cycled down to Brighton. And it took me about 7 hours. It's about 100 kilometers, so about 67 miles. It took me 7 hours, but for somebody who has a lot more experience than I do, it probably takes about 3 to 4 If you're going like full clip, it's about 3 to 4 hours. Anyway, it took me 7 hours, which means that as I got to Brighton, the sun was rising, and or the sun had sort of like had started to come above the horizon. And just before you get into Brighton, there is an absolute killer of a hill called the Ditchling Beacon. And the Ditchling Beacon is it's quite renowned for it's quite renowned from cyclists who do this route. It's a real horrible hill to cycle, and you're cycling up it for a long time, and then you think you're at the top, and then there's more, and it just keeps going on, and then you start to dip down a little bit, and you think, right, I'm finally at the top, and then it goes back up again. It's the worst hill in the world. Anyway, the getting to the top of the Ditchling Beacon, which is just outside of Brighton, as the sun is rising, across the sea, you can look out over Brighton out to sea, and the sun is rising, and you've just done this 7-hour bike ride. Man, it was like ecstasy. It was like better than drugs, better than anything. It was incredible.
Well, it's real,
Yeah,
you did it.
Yeah, did it.
That's cool, man. That's really awesome. I would like to do that one day.
Yeah, we should do it together. It's a great journey.
I haven't cycled in a long time. It's not really. I've gone back here in New Zealand. I've done a little bit of mountain biking. Enjoyable as a hobby with a lowercase h. Like it's a thing. You just go and do. But it didn't click for me as an obsession. It was just a thing to do, and I don't usually just do things just to do them. Like it needs to be an obsession, but cycling in general, here it's just a bit lame. You unlike Asia, where you can just go on the footpath and do whatever you like. Here it's like you're pretty much a vehicle. There's no infrastructure really for cycling, so you're like competing with cars and trucks, and people die all the time, and it's like, I'd rather just, and you have to wear a helmet, and it's like, well, come on. I'd rather just be able to cruise along slowly on the footpath like you can in Japan, and no one really cares, and kind of that more European style where you can kind of just park your bike up and rock in to a place. But I've got memories of out West Tokyo. We used to go, the mamachari, like the kind of real basic bikes that you have in Japan, and they've got this kind of, I don't know what you call the shape, but they don't have the bar across the front where the handlebars are. It just sort of goes down.
Drop frame, so you or something.
Yeah, what do you call that frame?
Step over frame. Yeah.
Yeah, step over frame. So, and it's real basic. But what I love about it is if you're going down a little hill, you can kind of put both your feet into the step over bit and just kind of cruise along like you're on a little scooter as you're going down the hill for like as long as it takes. And so I've got these memories of just cruising around West Tokyo. I used to go out like late at night. I'd have this desire, this urge, it would just come out, this animal instinct to just get out and go somewhere. And you cycle for half an hour, and you're in the night, and I go out to Tokyo Tower, go out to that side of town, and just kind of cruise around. And especially like late at night, the city actually quietens down quite a lot, as you might have noticed. Like the roads are still busy, but some of the business district, somewhere like Oimachi or Akasaka, it actually really dies down, and so you can actually kind of cruise along in the middle of the road, say 11 p.m. at night, and you've got the road to yourself, and it's just like you're cruising along, the wind in your hair, and you're guided by the lights of the city, and it was bliss, and I can identify the Ditchling Beacon. I can really imagine that, and sort of the sunrise. That was night, but then during the day, say I remember one time we went out to Musashi Kogane, like West Tokyo, Chuo line, rented a bike, and then just like out that way it's quite flat, and we would take the 2 bikes and just cruise around and end up at the art university, the Musashi no Bijutsu Daigaku, right? And it's way out in the middle of nowhere, but we would take our bikes out there, get a coffee in the little cafe there, and just and at that point it's like starting to be like rice field or like fields of I don't know, onions and that sort of thing. Maybe not rice fields, but like it's kind of like little farms and stuff starting to appear, little suburbs starting to appear, and it's just like bliss, pure bliss. And it's maybe autumn, the leaves are starting to fall, you've got the sun shining on your face, but it's cold but not too cold, so you're not going to overheat, and it's just this motion and momentum. There's something about that that's just beautiful,
You're really like you're touching my buttons here, man. This is like serious shit. I used to cycle along the Edogawa River at nighttime, and deep in sort of 2020, when like the pandemic had really gripped onto Japan, I was feeling quite sort of like claustrophobic, staying at home all the time, and at night time I would just go and take we had a mamachari as well. We bought it off a customer, and it was something like 1,000,000 yen, so $70 or something like that, and I had this mamachari which I used to just cycle along the Edogawa River just to get out, just to get away from being locked up at home all day. And it was summer, so it was, excruciatingly hot during the day. And then as night comes, the wind, like you say, the wind in your hair, and just like the weather really cools down at night. And as you're cycling, you just see a different side of Japan. And it was really quiet, and it was really magical, and those were sort of, when you first arrive in Japan, you first move to Japan, it's a very magical country. Everything is new and wonderful and magical for you, and then as you go on, as you live there, the magic sort of fades, it sort of disappears, and things that you once found so interesting become either normal, or you just don't think about them anymore. But there is something really magical about cycling at night in Japan. Just seeing people, because there are still people around and they're still doing stuff, and sort of seeing them pottering around their houses, or not being voyeuristic or anything, but sort of like looking through the window and seeing families at home. It's really, really
that's
amazing.
what my photography is all about, man.
Well, yeah, exactly,
outside
right?
Looking in,
Yeah, exactly.
And I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
I would cycle all the way down the river, and there was the cycle path would eventually stop after about 45 minutes of cycling along the river. The cycle path would stop, and there would just be like this train track that went across the cycle path, where all the subway trains would cross, and I would just stand there, and I would I'd have a cigarette, and I'd sort of like just have this moment watching the trains just like zip past, because they would be going really fast, and that was my joy for months during the lockdown, and I really, really loved it. And then 45 minutes back home, and it was just enough,
Yeah. I've almost forgotten like what you're describing. Like I know what you're talking about, but it's no longer in my life where I'm at the moment, and so I can imagine it, but it's not real here, and I struggle to reconnect with that, like just existence, where you're just sort of floating in a place. Which was my life for so many years, was just like that. You just go, just choose a direction, choose a heading, go, and you just discover what comes along the way. And it's all, every time it's like a different set of people, buildings, architecture, even if you take the same route, it's in a different context, and that's that sort of curiosity of the whole thing. I mean, that's beautiful, and I've struggled to find that since, I think all of the COVID restrictions stuff has kind of dampened that down somewhat, but also just being in this, place where it feels like there's a clear start and finish to the city and everything you can know. It's possible to know everything what's going on within this place I am at the moment, and to see all, whereas it never felt like that before. It's sort of unlimited potential.
So, I mean, I've been thinking about this recently and following curiosity. I think about it quite often recently, actually, quite a lot. And I wonder if my experience with exploring London is not quite the same as my experience of exploring Tokyo or Seoul or wherever else I've lived, because it feels too familiar to me, and I feel like I know it, even though I don't, right? I don't know London at all. It's a very big mystery to me, but I feel like I know it because it looks like something that I recognize from 12 years ago, whereas I did what you just described when I was living in Seoul and Tokyo. Like, I would just go to a random place and just explore and have no plan in mind, and I haven't really done that in London yet until today, which was quite nice. It was lovely just to cycle around.
Yeah. No, I have done that. Like, I mean, a lot of my nighttime photography in New Zealand is based off that same function, that same way of approaching exploration. And I every now and then, like even this morning, I came into the office, a beautiful, crisp winter's morning, not too cold, it's crisp, and the streets are empty. I walked down to the studio and I found a different way to get from Wellington's quite hilly, and I found a different staircase to get down from one road to another one. And I took that, and it was like, man, this is cool. I actually took a bunch of photos as well, just on my phone. And I mean, that was like a little hit of that, what we talk about. But it was like every day, it was like that before. And so I do miss it, I think. And I think it's the unfamiliar nature of these places. But more than that, it's the thought that the place you're in so well that you don't need to look. And I find myself almost on edge all the time because I'm trying to fill the time. So, I mean, it's a different mode of production. So I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm always kind of doing something. I'm trying to take efficient ways to get from A to B, because I know that there's not really any value in extending that or just letting it sit, whereas it was the opposite in my prior life, where I would definitely take the long way. I would walk. I'd walk for 2 hours to get somewhere just because I could, even though the train would take for like 10 minutes, because I knew that on the way I'd discover all these things, and that's kind of what I was after. Whereas to do that here is just to waste 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really valid point. Like, I used to walk everywhere in Tokyo. I used to get the train to Omotesando in the center of Tokyo, and then I would walk over to Nakameguro, and that is a really long journey.
Oh, mate. Yeah, man. I've forgotten. Like, I've walked from one end of Bangkok to the other in one night. Literally. I've walked from one side of Tokyo to the other, 10, 20, 30 kilometers,
Easy.
Easily. I used to have the old pedometer, and you could like track it, and it was like, man, I went through shoes, I racked up the Ks, and it's like, it's just not like that anymore. I still walk, all the time here, but it's just like point to point. generally speaking.
But also Wellington's really tiny as well, right? If you walked, I mean, you could walk the entire city in less than an hour, right? Pretty much most of the city.
Oh yeah, the central city easily. But I mean, there's a lot of suburbs, but they're kind of like at night time. I have done a little bit of wandering, and they take on a different glow. And to be fair, there has been a handful of instances where I've come across things that were quite amazing, like. Especially at night when I've been taking photos, and I'm like, I come across just a little moment, and I'm like, this is it. But it's few and far between, and you really have to work to get to that. But at the end of the day, it's a different mode of production. I think it's functional. It does what it says it is. You know, I turn up to the studio, I get some stuff done, I meet with friends. We've got favorite little places. It's more like I guess like a village. Like I see my friends all the time in town. Like I don't know. It's like it's never happened to me ever in my life that would happen. Like you know, and it's you know 2 or 3 people. If I'm walking down the street, I'll easily see 2 or 3 people I know on any given day or night. But it's not like that in other places because it's only you. So you're like a vessel of one. And so you carry everything with you, and so it's like you're traveling through the universe with just like this, what you have on your back, which is kind of a bit different to here. It's like, man, I know I can just walk in and go and see my friends. I got a friend who works at a cafe. I go pop in and see them. Like, it's more social and less introspective.
We've had walks together, haven't we? Like, we went for a walk in Taipei together. I think it was like.
A mini walk, yeah.
It was really
super long.
No, it wasn't super long, but it was quite early in the morning. I think it was 2 a.m. or something like that. And we've also walked for a tiny bit together in Wellington. But how is your experience different when you're walking alone or when you're walking with somebody else? Is there a difference in it?
I think. When you're with someone else, you're kind of communicating and talking about ideas, sharing insight. Whereas when you're by yourself, you're focused on what's around you and the input. It's kind of getting to know the city versus getting to know your partner. I think, and both are valid. I think both have their place. That they are slightly different, and I think trying to get to know the city while you're with someone else can be a little bit challenging, or you get to know it in a different way. And I still enjoy that kind of group stuff, but I think by yourself is where you really get to know a place. You know, there's no excuses, there's no words to cover it. It's just you and the location.
You have more time to develop your thought as well about that place, rather than if you're with someone, you're just maybe talking about something trivial or something else. But
well, you get to see, if you really look closely, you get to start to see what it is about, and the kind of the gestalt of the city and what's there and what's not there, how it might have changed, what used to be there. If you're really trying to imagine, like what did it used to look like? That's what I'm often thinking about, you know. The derived kind of moments, and it's hard. It's a meditative state. It's a little bit hard to get to when you're just talking through it.
It is meditation.
Yeah, both are valid, I think.
Yeah. I think it is real meditation, and you sort of have to be very comfortable being alone, right? I don't think everyone could be comfortable walking for 2 hours alone. Certainly not everyone could do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think maybe some people have never even done it.
Yeah,
before.
I believe that. I really believe that.
Being alone with your thoughts. I mean, yeah. I often, Sunday evenings, I often go for a walk by myself, like a mini walk, just to kind of unwind the week, kind of clear the cache, clear the memory, and it's related to sort of the work that I was doing previously, but just something about the motion and just walking it is the most basic thing. Maybe it's some sort of walking meditation, I guess. I don't know how to formalize it, but I really enjoy it. And it's like, man, it's so basic. You don't need any materials, just shoes, and that's it, really. Well, even then, you probably don't need shoes, but you just get to see the world around you, what's there, what's not there, and the people just who inhabit it, and how they just sort of flow through it. It's like a machine, and you get to witness its moving parts, flow of ideas and people, and it's the city is a machine.
There are so many famous authors who recommend walking, or who incorporate walking into their daily rhythm or routine, right? Like, I can't even remember any off the top of my head, but there's it's been well documented that there are many writers who will walk in the morning or walk after dinner, or to get the sort of creative juices flowing.
What it is, I think, is, and I agree that it's not even something that people talk about, because it's just part of the process, right, that they follow. But some of them talk about it, but a lot of them just, it's something they do. But I think the idea is that it's time for your subconscious to take over, because you're just floating along. You're just floating through the city, and then these ideas will start to emerge, and it's this kind of meditative state, but it's in that state when inspiration can come to you. But when your conscious mind is really focused, or you're talking, or you're superficially doing stuff, then that's kind of overriding your ability to kind of listen to those thoughts that are always bubbling up, from the fountain of insight that you carry with you. But when you sort of let that go, and you sort of just go for a walk, or there's other ways that people do this, say even if you're in the shower, you're not being distracted by anything. There's nothing to read, there's no one to talk to, there's no TV, there's nothing. And that's like, you get the shower thoughts, it's the same kind of concept, I think. You're just walking along, and you're seeing stuff like, you're seeing kind of glimpses of things, but then ideas can start to spring forth. And you then you go and you sit down at your computer to go and write some of this stuff down, and you're like, oh man, I've got this new idea. But it only happened because you gave yourself breathing room to let that idea come into you, I think.
But then I think you're right. I think you're totally right. And then I think you must be quite opposed to listening to music, or listening to anything, to any podcast that is too deep, right? Because it's probably going to distract you. If you're listening to your favorite songs or your favorite playlist or something, then your mind is going to be focused on that, and it's not going to be creating these ideas. Right?
Yeah. So that's the interesting thing, though. So in this city, I'm not really doing that, because I still feel quite defensive. I think, like, I don't know how to put this, but like, I just need to hold it together and get through this difficult time. Like, if I do too much of the kind of the creative open mind stuff, I don't know, I feel like it might be a bit difficult to land that. So I do feel all of the time, it's like podcast, man, I have to have the podcast, I have to have the music, I can't not do that. And that's not the way it used to be. I used to just, I never used to listen to musical podcasts. It's just me in the city. But now it's like, I don't know, I'm not quite ready. Maybe, and I consider this as like a COVID thing, man, like COVID restrictions. Like, I'm not ready to quite open up again yet. I'm just waiting for things to settle before it happens, because it's quite a vulnerable state, and good ideas, but also quite destructive ideas can emerge. And I guess I'm a little bit scared that that's maybe what's going to happen. I don't know.
What kind of destructive ideas do you mean?
Well, I can. Well, I mean, we always talk about the political stuff, but there's like a layer above that. It was like, what is the future of this current form of society and civilization that we have look like as we as we enter this climactic fourth turning, whatever you want to call it, where it's like the world could possibly be moving into a state that is, will forever change, and everything we knew, the way of living before, will be gone. And these kind of, and I can play them out, and it's not comforting really, because it would be nice if we could just kind of tick along, and everything is connected a little bit to the way it was before. But I really feel like that's probably not going to happen. Like, we're going to be entering a crisis time, and maybe not right now, but in the next couple of years, I can see that happening. What's happening in the United States, Europe, everything's starting to kind of like undulate. And if I think too much about it, it's like, well, the best I can do is hunker down and, just weather the storm. And that's not super kind of like naive, romantic, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to be good. It's quite a reactive kind of survivalist way of thinking. And I don't know, I don't think that's really what I want to do, but it might be what I have to do, if you know what I mean.
I'm really quite worried about America, especially the culture of America at the moment, and I can't quite put my finger on why, and I'm certainly not paid enough to know why. But going back to what you mentioned last podcast, this YouTube channel, Soft White Underbelly, we can see the bottom layers of society just falling out into the abyss, and that's just going to grow. Absolutely. People are really suffering over here now with sort of rising prices, and it's getting to a point where people are having to choose between eating or staying warm, or eating or paying the bills. And that's not good, man. That's not. Man.
Yeah, man. I tell you, I consider myself pretty resilient. I don't know what the animal would be, but maybe like a fox or a wolf or something. But like, I can make stuff happen. I've got skills in different areas. I've worked to get to that point. But even so, I still feel like, man, I'm not really in a good spot. Like, it wouldn't take much, for us to be in a difficult situation. Like, and so for someone who doesn't necessarily have someone who hasn't had the opportunity to do that, have that work experience or the skills and technical skills and things that that I've got, man, that must be hard. Like, I think of my grandparents, like they're pensioners. They're on the edge of society. They haven't got much really, and they're lucky that they have a family. We're sort of a social network that can support them. But for people who say don't have that family network, man, that's like there's nothing. Like, even New Zealand prides itself on having the social safety net, but I don't know. It's in the 10 years that I've been in Wellington, so the first time and this time now, so much has changed. There's so many people on the street now living rough. Just everything. It just feels just a bit more. Yeah, it's just a bit more run down. And that's New Zealand, man. That's like, we're like the socialist capital of the world. Everyone should have a house and a quarter acre. Apparently, like that's the way it always was. And so the United States, which was was always dog eat dog. I can only imagine. And seeing the stories of like people who like they make like one mistake and then they're on the street, it's wow. That can't be good for just the social fabric. And I don't know, man. I haven't spent enough. I mean, you've been to the United States. I haven't had the chance to go yet, so I'm just talking from what I've seen. But talking to my friends about it, they seem to share the same sentiment.
But it's not even like, going back to, you just mentioned just make one mistake and you're sort of out. It's not even make one mistake. It's just like go to hospital once, like get sick in America and you can be made bankrupt because of the healthcare charges and how much it is and how much it costs.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of healthcare though, like even here, it's really strange. It's like, you know, the Emperor's New Clothes kind of situation. Literally, to go to hospital in New Zealand, because, you know, we've got this centralised kind of like NHS, you know, like you know, single health system, free to the public. But to go to the hospital, you know, you have an emergency, you're sitting in the waiting room at least for 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's like. If you break your arm in the UK, how long are you going to be waiting to get that thing fixed up in the emergency room?
I heard a story recently. It might have just been an outlying case, but there was a guy who was having a heart attack, and the ambulance came 5 hours after he phoned the 999, and he died within the time that he was waiting for the ambulance. Like, and he was having a heart attack. Like, this is like absolute life or death situation in that moment, and they still couldn't get to him. You know, like, that's crazy.
At least with the US, if you've got health insurance, they're going to come in and pick you up. I hope. But in New Zealand, it's like, and the UK, it's kind of, it's different. Everyone gets hospital care, but if you really need to go and see someone like now, it's not going to happen. And so I just said, I say to people like, man, just don't get sick. You know, stay healthy. Like, and I'm not even joking. Like, we can't afford to be sitting. You know, we can't go to the hospital. And the GP, like your general practitioner, who's you're going to go and see about sort of small ailments, they're all booked out. You can't get them. There's too many people and not enough doctors, just for general medical advice. And so I'm not even registered in Wellington with a GP because I can't get one, and it's a real pain. And if you go and see them about something, they give you 5 minutes, pretty much. And it's like, look, I'm better off Googling stuff, finding out what the problem is, and if it's something I can fix myself, then I'll fix it myself. But man, I can only imagine the amount of cancers and, you know, major issues that are just going through because people are like, oh man, I can't be bothered. You know, I don't have time to go and sit in a waiting room.
But also, you know, GPs are too much focused on sort of dishing out painkillers and sort of like tablets and drugs, basically, right? Like you said, you go in, they have a 5-minute chat with you, and then their first solution is, right, what drug can we give to you? Whereas it should be more about like preventative or sort of changing something about your diet or your life, rather than just, here you go, this is like a Band-Aid on your axe wound. You know, it just doesn't really work.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I haven't had enough time to deal with them, really. Like, all I've ever found is that they're useless, honestly. And I've told doctors before, they're like, oh, you've got this. And I said, no, I've got this other thing. You just haven't looked properly. And then they're like, oh, actually, yeah, I see what you mean. Because I'm researching stuff. I'm talking to people myself. And I remember one time I had like a really bad cough. And I was like, yeah, this is what I've got. And he's like, oh, no, you're just... I can't quite remember what it was, but he said, you've got this other thing. I was like, no, this is what I've got. Give me this kind of medication. This is what I need. I need a prescription. So I was like, man, what am I even coming to you for except to get a prescription?
Well, I feel they're just stretched as well, aren't they? They're just seeing so many people every day. They're just trying to find the quickest, easiest sort of get healthy quickly fix, I guess.
Yeah. But so yeah, the whole health system. There's like, okay, there's some issues there, and I'm lucky that I'm relatively healthy and young enough that I can kind of get away with not doing that. But man, I saw how badly the COVID response, and we talk about pandemic, but I always correct people and say no, it was the COVID restrictions that caused the issues. The pandemic was a non-event. My grandfather, who's super sick. And just seeing his surgeries and his doctor's appointments and all of his stuff get delayed, I was like, man, this is just ridiculous. And it was for no reason, ultimately. Like, it was just, they were reduced staff. They were doing, you know, it was all hands on deck for COVID. And anyone who had elective surgery or other operations, quality of life operations, they're all on the back burner. And so, you know, the amount of lives, the amount of human years that were just wasted by not getting the healthcare that they needed, especially for quality of life stuff like knee, hip replacements, that sort of thing, which make a huge difference for older people. Being able to be mobile, and then that means they can be mobile, they can be healthy, they can go and do stuff, but that got taken away from them.
Mm-hmm. And they can't leave their house. They can't get the sun, so they're not getting vitamin D. I mean, it's just like this massive cycle, right? I mean, nobody was, people were talking about that, but it wasn't loud enough.
What's given me context to comprehend this, as we've talked about a little bit before, is, and it's a bit, some people are saying it's sort of pseudoscience-y, but this fourth turning, these kind of circular or cyclic history ideas, starting to make a bit of sense to me as a way for looking at this. That we're coming into these hard times, and just everything across the board seems just a bit. I don't know. It's not very nice. Nothing seems great. Everything seems difficult. There's little. You really have to try to find the goodness. And I feel like that's just the cycle that we're in. And ideally we can get through it and emerge on the other side into a new era where everything and anything seems possible, which seems like such a distant memory, but I believe it is possible, but we have to get there first.
How long do you think it will take?
I was having a think last night, and again, I was combining a couple of different sources of information, but I'm feeling like politically the most important thing that's going to happen will be the next US presidential election.
Oh yeah,
I think that's going to be a turning point, a major crisis turning point in this culture war that's ongoing. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but whatever happens will be an instigator to the next thing and then the next thing, and I think it will just accelerate from there. And so we're kind of just still in a bit of cruise. It's quite bad, but it's like we're cruising towards the mountain. The airplane is coming into the mountain, but that's when it's going to connect. And who knows? It could go politically. I don't know. They're all as bad as each other, but it could go any way. But the outcome of that and the response, which once upon a time would have been, look, let's just be calm, let's work together. I think it's going to be polarizing, and it's going to create these huge rifts within society, especially the United States, which will bleed out into other countries, I think, and that will be the beginning of the unwind.
Is it right that Donald Trump is running again for presidency? Or
I don't know, man. I don't know. Possibly. It wouldn't surprise me if Donald Duck starts running for presidency.
Donald Duck, Kanye West, I think, is probably coming back.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's a symbol. They're not. These aren't real people. These are not people that you can have a conversation with. These aren't real humans, and I mean that. Like, they're all symbols within the machine, and there is a man underneath all of it. He could be sort of your rich uncle, but at that level, these people become symbols of things, and they in a way they're not even in control of their own image. They're swept along. It's like you've got this ocean, and the waves are really quite rough at the moment, and so their boat, all of these vessels are just sort of like chopping and turning. And that's because the ocean is rough, and there's not really much anyone can do about it. And it was interesting because it's from that crisis that the next leader, who I will, thinking positively about it, the leader who will take the United States and the world to the next level, and kind of restore this balance, will emerge from this crisis that's going to come in the next couple of years. Which sounds so just saying that sounds a bit kind of doomsday, but I think that's right. There's somebody out there who's going to lead the way, and it won't be one of the ideologues. It will be cool-headed, someone who can bring various different people together. That will be the true fix. And I believe that it's hard to see it, because when it's dark, everything is dark. When it's winter, everything's cold. But you got to realize that there is something on the other side of it.
There
just
is.
Hasn't. Yeah.
There is definitely, but I don't see it happening with the current sort of system, the sort of political system that we have at the moment. I just don't see it happening, because it doesn't matter who gets into power. In America, it's quite obvious that it doesn't matter who gets into power. The status quo is kept. It doesn't matter if it's the red side or the blue side or it is just the whole machine is just trotting along as it always does and as it always will do. So I think there needs to be a big dramatic change somewhere, somehow. But look at us, like we've wandered back into politics territory.
Oh,
we love talking about it, don't we?
I think about this stuff more than I should, but that's what I'm saying. Like it feels like the protective mechanism at this point is like, okay, my naive artistic mode is like that needs to be protected by a little bit more reality check. Like things aren't just going to be okay. Like that they will be, like in a spiritual sense, that everything's kind of just okay. But if you just leave it at that, what are you even going to do? But there's like a practical layer where it's like, okay, get your stuff sorted, be good to go so that you can handle this, and so that on the other side of it, we're all good to create and do all the things we want to do. And I think more and more about that, because I don't think anyone can just say, oh yeah, she'll be right anymore. I used to be like that. Like it's not major. North Korea, whatever. Like there was always these little kind of like hot spots and things happening in the world, but now it's like, yeah, it's coming home to roost, and I don't want to be stuck. For just practically speaking, I don't want to be stuck in a difficult spot. So being aware of the undercurrents and what's coming up on the horizon, and then preparing for that, is the hard work that we have ahead of us for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it can be quite confusing knowing what to do to prepare. It's something that I would like to know more about. How do we prepare? How do we get ready for all of this? Like growing your own food? Is that it?
Yeah, I've got a couple ideas. So I think you got to understand what's at stake. Like I don't think it is going to be like a Mad Max situation like that. That's longer term maybe, but I think it will just be a slow slide and a slow decline, and it will speed up and slow down at certain points, but it'll just be this ongoing decline. And that rotten floor of society, where once upon a time it was like, yeah, you grow up in a broken home, you've got no skills, you're in poverty, blah blah, and there's all these like stacked factors against you, and you can still overcome them, in special circumstances. The requirement for that floor to just fall out beneath you is going to go, less and less, so that eventually all you need to do is say the wrong thing once, or miss one payment on your rent or something, and then you're out and you're done, and there's no recovery. And I think that's what they call like individual collapse, where other people are doing okay, but you're suddenly done for, and then you're without a miracle, you're on the street, you're scavenging, you're living the most basic day-to-day life possible, and your time preference is zero, as in what's I need shelter, I need food, I need water right now. That's all that you can do, and so your ability to do high-level work is just gone. And I think those requirements will become less and less stringent, and it hasn't come for us yet, but it's not far away. I don't think.
It sounds like Blade Runner, sort of Blade Runner universe, or some kind of like dystopia universe.
Yeah, cyberpunk for real.
Yeah. The video game Cyberpunk. It sounds exactly
the
like
cyberpunk genre,
yeah, and the genre itself. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's quite terrifying. I mean, I sort of have to be careful that I don't think it's going to happen just because I've watched too many movies where it's happened, you know. But yeah, I think with just a little nudge, we could sort of head in that direction. We do really need to be careful.
Yeah. And that's why I got to be careful that I don't let my mind wander too much, because I could imagine a world where, you know, you're scanning your eyeballs at the Taco Bell to get your food unit, you know, and your gig economy, you know, just like the hard life. It's all, I mean, the materials are all here. The ingredients for the cyberpunk dystopia are already here in front of us, and in some places it's already emerged. And it's like, when you look at what is happening in film and television, for a long time it's been quite dystopian, you know. When was the last time we saw a film that emerged that was really quite optimistic about the future? Honestly.
Yeah.
And you got to go way back to like the 60s or 70s to see stuff that was, you know, talking about, you know, the future, the great future of humanity. You know, bases on the moon and kind of the interstellar species of humanity. You got to look at something like Star Trek, go way back to see stuff that actually talks about these kind of human virtues and values and the possibility of this brilliant future. Whereas now it's like zombies,
Mad Max,
post-apocalyptic wastelands, police states, cyberpunk. And these are cool. Everyone loves it, but it's like, yeah, it's getting a little bit close to reality, and eventually they will merge, I think, or maybe not. But it's up to us, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it is up to us. But yeah, I guess we need to think more about what we can actually do ourselves, as individuals, I guess, or as communities.
I think it's important to not be apathetic or nihilistic. Nihilism is a disease, and just thinking, oh, it's all going to collapse. You know, that's at that point, then it has collapsed. You know, it's already over for you because you don't believe in anything. And oh man, I was listening to this fascinating podcast about this Russian author who wrote, I think it's called The Underground Man. Have you heard of that?
No.
Let me just find the name of the author. Oh yeah, Dostoevsky.
Oh yeah. Notes from the Underground.
Notes from the Underground. Yeah. And then it's like the underground man, so this civil servant who sort of lives underneath the floorboards of this old building, and I just piqued my interest, and so I am going to try and read the book. But it was like this. I think it was a reflection on kind of nihilism and bureaucracy and kind of these systems that can overtake people's lives. And I realized, like, yeah, you need to believe in something, no matter how small, and that is what will get you through. And that's like Viktor Frankl, you know, Man's Search for Meaning, you know, these kind of like real basic core beliefs. And so I think to get through this next crisis, being able to believe in something that you hold dear, something that's really important to you, being able to work towards it, and then also having the practical skills to avoid your own personal demise. And so, because I think they're two sides of the same coin, like, because you can be kind of quite grounded, and I don't know, the New Zealander inside me comes out when I'm like, yeah, there's kind of the hippie kind of like, oh, let's just chill and be content and zen-like, and there's a time and a place for that, but I'm also like, yeah, let's put food on the table, let's be people of action. You know, if you just let it happen to you, then it's like you're just sort of sitting there waiting. And I don't know, I've never really liked that approach. I believe that there is action that we can all take, even small action, that will lead to a better outcome. And at the very least, if you just sort your own situation out, then you're going to avoid going into oblivion, you know. But
yeah, I think that's right. Like, take care of yourself, and then your world will be taken care of, right? But
yeah, well, it's like you're in an airplane. Put your mask on before you help others, is what they always say, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, make sure you've got food on the table, you've got shelter, you've got water, you've got, you're okay, and also help others and help them as much as you can, and then you help the community, and it sort of spreads out from there. And sometimes it comes back at you, and people help you. But I think being nihilistic about, well, it's fate, it's destiny, whatever happens, is, I think that's not going to help anybody. I think if you can do the work that you need to do, but also help others, build a system of understanding and sharing ideas, and working together, man. It's so atomized, and society has become so, the social contract is gone, man. It's like no one cares about anyone else anymore, and I think that's probably one of the big issues, and I think that's led to this atomization, and there'll be something that we need to all do to bring it back together, where you can learn to love your fellow man again, and see yourselves as a collective, but not a collective as in this like mass of kind of unthinking people, but actually as an identity. I'm part of this group. I might hold different opinions, but I'm part of the group.
Sounds like a very New Zealand way of life. Shifting gears like really slightly, I've been thinking a lot recently about legacy, and in particular leaving a legacy, and thinking about what my legacy would be if I did leave this planet, sort of thing. It sounds very depressing, but it's not. It's positive, I promise. But like, just thinking about the kind of person that I want to be, and in particular, the kind of person I want to be remembered as. And I don't know, it's just been filling my mind quite a lot recently. Like, what do I want to do with my life now, so that I can be remembered in a sort of positive light? And it's all surrounding what we're talking about here, like, doing good for the community and helping the community. That's sort of what I want to be remembered for, and that's what I want my legacy to be. And the reason I started thinking about all of this was because the Mark Later, the guy who does Software Underbelly, he made this introduction video to his YouTube channel, and in that introduction video he started talking about, he was working for an advertising company, and he was very good at his job, but he started thinking about the fact that was going to be his legacy, being a good advertiser, making money for big corporations, like that. And then he started to feel quite uncomfortable with that. And then I started thinking about my own, and I was like, wow, what's my legacy going to be? What am I leaving behind? And then so this whole week I've just been like deep in thought about that. But I do think it comes down to like the main thing that I want to be known for is sort of helping others. So that's what I should be doing, right? I mean, that would make me so happy if that was my legacy, like supporting the community, building community. That's what I started to do in Tokyo, right? Building community, helping the community. I want to do more of that. So how can we do more of that, man? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you mention that, because I don't think often about legacy, to be honest. I guess maybe I do, but it's what can we do now? What do I want to be known for now? What kind of person do I want to be now? And I agree, community is really important, and I think we've got different communities that we're part of together or separately, but kind of the human connection, and I feel like there could be, taking this concept that there's a crisis coming, and I mean everyone knows it. I don't think you can talk to anyone and they're going to be like, oh yeah, she'll be right, mate. That it's quite clear that in the world right now, there's a huge number of issues, and we could list those up and talk about them, but it's like, there's just a black cloud of negative stuff happening that has emerged. But what is going to emerge once that passes, and inevitably it will pass, all things pass eventually, what will that world look like, and what will be the kind of the next great kind of paradigm and moment in society. And the last time this happened was like the 1950s, pretty much the kind of Pax Americana, the world was rebuilding. We set up the UN and all these like institutions to show that we'd never have war again. We're going to have human rights for everybody. Everything is going to be about linear progress, and the world is going to become a better place step by step by step. We're going to be led by these stoic leaders who, though might rule with an iron fist, they're driven by values forged during the crisis, and some of them good, but some of them not so good. But there was this kind of myth anyway, and we can talk another time about whether it was true or not. But I think generally, even New Zealand, for a period there in the 1950s, New Zealand was actually the richest country per capita in the world, and that was just the great plenty. Everything was all good. And again, not sure if it's completely true looking at it retrospectively, but there was a myth there. And what I'm looking forward to next is, what is that next period going to look like? There's going to be this massive moment, and if we emerge from it successfully, which I think we can, then there's going to be a new paradigm. And what is that paradigm going to be built upon? I believe, we can look at some of the technology around us and how that could be spun to be used in better ways. Talking about things like micro communities, decentralized technology, things like that. I love the idea of like connecting with people all over the world, different countries, different religions, different backgrounds, all connecting through common themes through like digital micro communities, and not something like Twitter, which is like that but not that. I'm really interested in this idea. Let's come together and talk about it. And it's decentralized. It can't be censored or taken over or taken down by the government. And sharing knowledge, sharing ideas, sharing beauty, that kind of thing. So, let's build communities. Let's teach others.
Do you think we can do that without turning it into something like Twitter now? Like Twitter is a cesspit of politically. It's just awful.
I've stopped using Twitter.
But so is if we have these communities, is it always going to end up like that? Because if you think about Facebook as well, it's also like a political hotbed, and there's a lot of shit that goes on over there. As we've mentioned before, like YouTube comments can get really nasty, especially on these sort of like more popular videos. Is it that when we all get together with strangers and we're hiding behind an avatar, we are more likely to just like attack each other or troll or cause chaos? Is there a way that we can stop that? Is there a way that we can not do that?
Well, there is a way. So that's interesting you mentioned that, because there is this move now towards like digital identity frameworks and basically like no more privacy ever. And that's like the heavy-handed government approach, which isn't going to work anyway, and it's evil, honestly. And that's what our Prime Minister is talking about bringing to New Zealand, actually, having to sign up to post on Reddit, and confirm your identity. And that's just, it's insane, but it's the only way that a government, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and they've got the hammer of legislation and just being able to change the law. But what I actually see happening is decentralized communities that come together organically. So I don't care what's happening on YouTube, but I've got, we've got a small group of creatives and artists that you and I, we share with our Signal group, and we share ideas, and it's like, man, these are great people. There's no trolling going on there, and it's invite only. People come to it, they join it, and we haven't got any issues there. But we're all representing people from every corner of the world, not from every country or anything, but it's a global community pretty much. And I see more and more of that sort of stuff emerging, and really people coming back to like core ideas, so whether it's people who they've got a hobby or something they're really interested in, and then they come together. And I don't know, it seems hard to imagine because we live in a world where everything's politicized and polarized and that, but I think anonymous communities or pseudo-anonymous communities can work.
So is it more about the size maybe, because our Signal group is quite small, and maybe other communities where this works, like Discord, Discord is thriving at the moment, isn't it? There are communities popping up all over the place, and it seems like Discord hasn't had the same kind of as you say, politicized attack from trolls and all that. So I wonder if it's something to do with the size of the group, and the smaller the group, the less likely those things are to happen. Or maybe it's moderation. Maybe there's more moderation on those kind of Discord servers.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's I'm not sure. I believe the technology that we need to get through the crisis is already it's already here. It just hasn't been used in a way that, or hasn't been packaged up in a way that is what it needs to be just yet. I think the community aspect of it, though, is like that's always been a thing, and there'll be people who are never part of any communities, but I think bringing more and more people into the fold and saying, get away from these big networks, these ideology machines, and bring it back to grassroots networks. I think that could be a really big help. And I think artistically, just continuing to do our work. I'm seeing, just as a tangent as well, there's all this kind of lo-fi hip-hop stuff on YouTube, right? And I love listening to that sort of thing. But I realize that's also, I think one day someone's going to look back and be like, this pretty much emerged as the crisis was unfolding. It's like people are looking for things to help them get through this. And, chill, cafe ambience, lo-fi hip-hop, YouTube channels, SJF, easygoing, motion music, these kind of, I think there's going to be an era where people identify this emerged at that time as a antidote, a kind of grassroots antidote to what was going on in the world, where you could just chill, something that would help you get through that. And you see the communities around some of those channels and that, and they are quite cool. It's like helps people get through their day.
There's an amazing video that by I follow this lady on YouTube, and she does like these video essays, like 15-minute, 10-minute video essays. Her name is Alice Capel. I'd love to chat to her on the podcast sometime, but she did this whole video essay about loneliness on social media, and we've talked about this before in the past, but she specifically talked about the lo-fi community, and she said like lo-fi music is community music, and so she's talking exactly what you're talking about here. Like, it's music, and the comments on the videos below the comments below the videos are all about community and sort of everyone's in pain, so they're turning to these comment boards to sort of get through that pain together. It's community, and that's incredible. It's incredible stuff.
I think so. It's organic. It's grassroots, and again, it's the platform itself can be used for nefarious, kind of ideological work, but you get these other things like these lo-fi channels, and I love them, man. I actually take screenshots of the artwork. I really love some of the artwork, just like hand drawn kind of cityscapes, and just because it reminds me of the old days, But everyone's looking for that, and I think tools like that will emerge more and more, and one day people will be like, oh, like same with television. Like when people are like, oh, television, man, it's like, man, what's that? No one watches TV anymore. And so the single channel ideology box is like, yeah, that's so uncool. You know, why would you watch anything political? Why would you be interested? And you've got to be careful that doesn't lead to apathy, but people can be lo-fi hip-hop listeners, but adamantly firm believers in a certain way that the world should work, and righteousness and philosophy and all of that as well, but they just happen to be turned off to the political noise. And I think that's the kind of world that we could see, where there's a increased interest in civics and the way the law works and all of that, but without the kind of the spin of the political noise, and people just get on with their lives, you know, and being a good citizen, and good as in participating in civil society is just assumed that's what you're going to do. You know, of course you're going to vote, of course you're going to be informed about decisions that affect you, but it's not going to be in a way that's ideological or kind of like simplistic. You know, it's going to be quite nuanced. So maybe that's just a dream, but
it's a nice dream though. I mean, it sounds nice to have these smaller communities where there isn't too much like power going on, and then so these communities are sort of self-governing, and they have their own sets of rules and their own sets of kind of ways of living, but every community has one rule among them, and that is your community must not affect in any negative way another community. And I think you know, moving towards something like that, it sounds all a bit like, at the moment it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it would be a bit more beautiful. Maybe life would be a bit more like, you know, each of these communities would provide something for the general public.
Yeah, I think it's achievable, man. I think we'll all look back, and I think both of us are at a good age where we can, I think we will be leaders in this transition. It falls on our shoulders to do this work. I think older generations aren't in that position, and the fourth turning talks about this a little bit, but I think it will fall on our generation to do this work. And whether it's, you know, something like cafes or bicycle clubs, or, you know, the art groups talking about things, all of these little groups that kind of give people a sense of belonging, even if it's digital and decentralized, but a sense of belonging that can connect people across the world. And I saw just a guy I know on Instagram, I saw him, he's a Hong Kong guy, and he's just been to Egypt to do some music events and some kind of pop culture stuff. But I was really inspired because he wrote this like quite in-depth article or like post about how he met these guys in Egypt and they were doing this stuff, and I was like, man, wherever you go in the world, you're going to find people who connect with what you do, and there's kind of like undercurrents. And the flip side of like a decentralized digital global network of culture and communication is that it can be used for ideological work in a negative sense, but it can also be used to connect people on all sides of the world and bring people together. And so, man, imagine, you know, we can go to these faraway places, take photographs or do artwork, create music that brings people together, and they can find the goodness within each other. I mean, it sounds woo-woo, as you say, but man, I could see it happening. And we emerge from this, you know, and then the next generation, they'll never know the work that we did to create the world. That's going to just seem so natural. It's all going to come together. Hopefully we're on a Bitcoin standard or something that like means that there's no more war and like destruction over oil and these resources and stuff. But that's another topic for another day. But
we can dream.
I don't know, man. I just got to stay a bit optimistic.
Yeah, and your favourite saying, hold on, pain ends, hope.
Hold on, pain ends, yes.
Yeah, we should try and slip that into every episode, I think. It's very good.
That's good, man. No, it's good to catch up. I think it's good to talk through this stuff, because I know there's people out there who maybe they're feeling it, but they don't quite know what it is. And it can just feel like, man, why does it suck so much? You know, like if you can't identify the cause of it, it can feel quite as if everything's wrong. You know, maybe it's me, you know, is there something wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? And that's the spiral that can lead you down towards these negative paths, right? But actually realizing that, you're just kind of caught up in the current. It's rough seas. The boat is sort of going, left and right. It's sort of moving around on the ocean, and you're just sort of sitting there like, well, what do I do? But eventually the oceans will calm. Hopefully it's not too difficult. I think there is difficult times ahead still, but we will get through it. And the world that emerges after will be better and more inspiring, hopefully.
And let's be active and change our, the world around us.
Yeah. I mean, I think be active. The other idea that I'm really interested in pursuing a bit further is just the idea of more like actively building communities through mentorship and knowledge sharing. So this is something I've been thinking about is there a way to build platforms or networks for sharing creative inspiration and ideas, helping people develop their work. I think something that lacks in the world right now is, there's a lot of talent floating out there, but maybe people don't know how to actualize their work. Whether it's making a video game or making a photo book or making a movie or something, and taking the kind of commercial element out of it, because I know as an artist, like I don't actually care if it makes money. Like if it makes money, then it helps me make more stuff, and so I should try and commercialize it. But the more important thing is to just get the work out of myself and into physical form. And so helping people actualize that is really important to me, and I feel like we do that together, you and me, but I do it with other people as well. And if I could expand some of those ideas out, and I guess this podcast is one of those ways in a sense, to help people, whether it's through like mentor sessions or like, I don't know, like webinars or something, some sort of format, which I'm still working through how that's going to work. But I'd love to I mean, I could see myself really spending a lot of time on that, because I feel like that's very valuable,
Yeah, and also our Signal group is a great place to sort of start those conversations as well. Right?
Yeah. We should, if people reach out to us if you want to jump on our Signal group. We'll reach out to us, and we'll see if we can get you in there. It's great. We love Signal. It's all privacy focused. There's no big brother spying on you. But it's really easy to use, and it's simple, man. It's like, this is what messaging and social networks should be like. Just simple, no frills, full privacy, all of that stuff.
And it's not WhatsApp. I don't know about you, but I just feel more and more slimy after using WhatsApp now.
Oh man, yeah. I don't like WhatsApp, but cool. All right. Well, man, look, let's leave it there. That was a good catch up. It was a good chat. It's our first video call, so we're going to have some video to go with this, which